in the handout, and I'll just say that Matt Cherry is an international representative for the International Humanist and Ethical Union. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here as a representative of the International Humanist and Ethical Union, and I want to thank the United Sikhs for including the perspective of the humanist community in today's meeting. And I would say the warmth of your welcome has made me have a pleasurable experience and as an honourable experience in being here. Humanists are often left out of meetings on freedom of religion or belief, which I think is unfortunate both for humanists and also for anyone seeking to protect freedom of religion or belief. But I think it's fairly obvious why we're left out, because humanists generally do not describe themselves as religious. And it is a common misconception held by many people and indeed by many countries that freedom of religion or belief does not protect people who are not religious. Indeed, I've heard some countries argue when they are persecuting free thinkers and atheists, they say that they are doing so to protect the rights of religion. But freedom of conscience is the right of every human being by virtue of them having a conscience and having beliefs. It is not a right for religions, but for individuals. Now, of course, many individuals may manifest their individual conscience by practicing a religion, by following religious beliefs. But they may also manifest their conscience by rejecting religion and by being non-believers. And that is why the UN so clearly states that the right to freedom of religion or belief, and I quote here from the UN Human Rights Committee, protects theistic, non-theistic, and atheistic beliefs, as well as the right not to profess any religion or belief. Now, this is important not just, I think, for humanists, but for all people who are concerned with protecting the human right to freedom of conscience. By some estimates, there are more than 1 billion non-religious or non-theistic people in the world who more or less share the moral and philosophical outlook of humanism, who share a belief in human dignity and human rights to support democracy. But the vast majority of these people do not belong to humanist groups, and indeed would not describe themselves as humanists or atheists or by any other conventional label. One word we use for ourselves is freethinker, but freethinkers almost by definition refuse to conform and to follow labels. So most freethinkers do not use the label freethinker. There's an old liberal joke in America that goes something like, I don't belong to an organized political movement. I'm a member of the Democratic Party. And I think something similar could be said about the humanist movement. I don't belong to an organized religious movement. I'm a humanist. Forsaking temples, congregations, and clergy, forgoing distinctive dress or rituals, and failing to build strong organizations, humanists are far less visible than most belief groups. And this, in fact, may be a benefit for humanists in many ways. It may make it easier for us to avoid persecution because of our beliefs. But I think the lack of self-identification by the non-religious also makes us more powerless in the face of discrimination. And these are two sides of the same coin. Our invisibility makes it harder to pick on us as individuals, but it also makes it easier to pick on us as a group or as a class of people, because the public, because the politicians do not realize how many people are free thinkers, how many of their neighbors are non-religious, how many of their heroes are non-religious. So it's easier to demonize people who do not have religion, because we are so often invisible, especially in societies that repress heresy and the lack of religion. Now, clearly the situation is very different for Sikhs, almost the reverse, I might say. And I admire you for your strong and proud identity. But I also understand the problems that this brings, and that it can present to you as a very visible minority in society. And it is for this reason that I appreciate the importance and the value of the UN Human Rights Committee ruling in support of Ranjit Singh against the French government. But I want to make a couple of things clear. Firstly, when the International Humanist and Ethical Union debated these issues several years ago, there was no clear consensus among our member organizations. We are a democratic organization. We have more than 100 member organizations in more than 40 countries. Many of those countries, most of those organizations would support the Sikh position, but our French member organizations in particular agreed with the 2006 ruling of the European Court of Human Rights. And this was debated before the recent ruling by the UN Human Rights Committee. So they argued that since the rules in France were motivated by secular motives, that they had a legitimate goal of trying to identify people, and they were not motivated by hostility to religion or to Sikhs, that those rules are not violating human rights. Along with many other humanists, I disagree with the French view on this. But as I said, there is no consensus among humanist organizations about this. Just as it appears there is no agreement between the European Court of Human Rights and the UN Committee on Human Rights on this issue. Now, I only have a couple of minutes, but I wanted to pick up on a point that was made earlier, I think by Singh, talking about the threat of secularism to Sikhism. And I want to respond to that because I think there are different conceptions about secularism, different types of secularism. And the secularism of France, I think, and certainly the secularism we see from Ataturk and the Turkish tradition, are hostile to the idea of having religious expression in the public sphere. But the tradition of secularism we see in the United States, the tradition that we are seeking in Britain, the tradition of secularism which I think goes to a great humanist hero of mine, Pandit Nehru in India, allows the idea of religious expression in public, although it does not want or seek or allow government endorsement of one particular religious view, or indeed of religion over non-religion, or atheism over religion. And I think this view of secularism is much more favorable to Sikhs and should be a form of secularism that Sikhs can embrace around the world because it protects everyone's rights equally and does not favor one religious group over another, and would not allow these measures which ban the expression of your religious views in public. And I'm told my time is up, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Max.
The last speaker is Jack Glaser. He's Associate Professor of Public Policy, and he comes to us from University of California, Berkeley. As you have the bio in front of you, I'll just read the first sentence. Jack Glaser